Hello, I'm back. October was a month. I read a crap ton. But I read not that much, but I listened to a lot. So, I guess I will just get started. I mentioned last month that I was listening to the creature feature collection that Amazon had put out. Um, I think there were 6 of them. They're all pretty decent, especially considering the fact that these authors didn't, not that they didn't put effort into it, but it wasn't a high priority for them because it wasn't their personal release thing. So I was impressed. The first one that I finished was called The Pram. It was by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. They tend to write pretty similarly. It was about a man and his wife. They moved into a new house in a new town where there's some ultra religious folk around. And the reason they moved was because they lost their child, their baby, and they couldn't bear to live in the house where they had had that trauma. And so they move, and they're both going through some, recovery. And the man he goes to the store, and he is given a pram, or a baby carriage, to take his groceries home in. And he starts to believe that there is a baby in that pram. And there was a moment that was very reminiscent of The Monkey's Paw, if you're familiar with that short story, which was spooky, and the ending is not what you would have expected. It was good. I gave it a 4-star. Looking back at the rest of the collection, 4 might have been low. It might have deserved a 5, if I'm being honest. But it was the first one I read, so I didn't know. The second one I read was called Ankle Snatcher, and it was by Grady Hendrix. If you're familiar with any of his work, he wrote How to Sell a Haunted House, the Final Girls Support Group, books like that. It was good. It was about a man who, when he was a boy, his father was sent to prison because the police believed that the father killed the mother, but the father told the son that she was taken by the monster that lives under the bed. And so his whole life he's believed in this monster living under the bed, and he has to jump into bed with the light. I mean, he can't touch the ground without the lights on basically. And he meets this lady friend and brings her home, and she doesn't believe in that superstition, and all hell breaks loose. And I don't want to tell too much more because it goes from there. But it was good. Short. I gave it 4 stars as well. Spoiler alert, I gave all of them 4 stars because they were all really good, which is why I say, looking back, I think I would have given the Pram 5 stars instead, just because it was spooky. It was spooky in a good way. Ankle Snatcher was also spooky in a good way. It was just, I felt like it was too short. I could have listened for longer. The next book I read was for October's book club, and I guess I started it in September. I finished it at the close to the beginning of October. It's called Fantasticland by Mike Bockoven. The premise of this is that there is an amusement park in Florida called Fantasticland. It's like a rival of Disney World. And there was a hurricane that left all of these workers stranded at the park. And it's written from different perspectives, kind of like a reporter is interviewing the people who were involved. it ends up that all of these people, they kind of like broke off into these groups. And I mean, it was kind of like Lord of the Flies. Like they have like resorted to like survival, when in reality there's like plenty of food. I mean, it's in Florida, so they had prepared for something like this to happen. There's all sorts of food. But, like, these people just go into like crazy survivor mode. And there's one faction that's like super like like just totally savage. Like they just, I don't think savage is a politically correct word anymore. I don't know the right word. They like just are mean, and everybody else is afraid of them and kind of trying to survive. It wasn't, I don't necessarily know if I would call it horror in the sense that I usually think of horror. It was scary in like a realistic sort of way, that that people, when they're away from their phones and there's mob mentality involved, that people have the potential to like just snap, which is scary. But it wasn't, I don't know. It's definitely horror to an extent. There's some body horror and gore. So I guess there's that. But it was definitely not like spooky scary, by any stretch of the imagination. It was good. I gave it 4 stars. It started out pretty strong. I liked it. I mean, the book club, people at book club all really liked it. I kind of feel like when books are written from multiple perspectives, if the writing is too similar throughout, I get kind of bored of like the multiple perspective thing. Which I understand that from an author's perspective, it has to be incredibly hard to like write all of these things from different perspectives and in like different styles. But I don't know. I just like it better when they're very distinct styles. And there were a couple that were like, oh yeah, this person seems to have their own like style. But a lot of them, they blend together in my brain, I guess. Good, 4 stars. Next, I finished It Waits in the Woods, which was by Josh Malerman, and he wrote Bird Box, and then the sequel, Mallory. It was about a girl who goes into the woods with her sister and some friends, and her sister goes missing. And her parents kind of blame her because she was older and she was supposed to, watch her sister, kind of her sister's keeper type deal. And so she feels guilty and decides to go looking for her sister in the woods. And there's this urban legend of this man creature thing that, takes people in the woods because it wants to steal their faces. So it's about this girl that goes to look for her sister. Don't want to give too much away. She finds her sister. But there's, some scares along the way. I gave it 4. Again, I could have listened longer. Sometimes my issue with short stories is that they're too short. And I could see them being novellas or occasionally even novels. And then I get frustrated because they're over too soon, which is not a bad thing by any means. It means I want to listen to it more. It's just that, I wish there were more. The next one I read was for school. We were doing kind of a long poetry unit, and it was called Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And Jason Reynolds has been in the teacher verse for a while as writing some young adult stuff that kids really tend to gravitate toward. The kids liked it. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars as well. It's written in verse. So when you hold, I mean, I don't have a copy of it with me here, but when you like hold it, it's as big as a novel, but it reads super fast because it's written in verse. So it's about a kid whose brother is killed, and we don't entirely know what happened. It could have been gang violence. We're not entirely sure like what happened, but the kid knows or thinks he knows who did it, and so he lives by these three rules. Don't cry. Gosh, I can't remember all three, but the last one is always get revenge. And so he's going out to avenge his brother. He gets in the elevator at the apartment, and on his way down to the bottom of the elevator, on each floor down, he meets someone who has died, like in his past. And they're all trying to convince him in the end not to do it, because the moral of the story is how, this violence is just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's like an eye for an eye. And I don't know what to tell you what the ending is, but he just meets people, like, starting at the top, he's not as close to the people, and then as he works his way down, it gets people he was closer and closer to that are trying to convince him to break the chain of violence. It was good. I can see why teenagers like his stuff. It's very young. It's written in a lot of different vernacular. My kids, I think, were a mixed bag. Some of them really liked it, and some of them were just okay with it. But that's to be expected. The next one I finished, I've been reading it for a while, probably since July, because I'll explain in a second, is Monster She Wrote, and it is compiled by Lisa Kröger and Melanie R. Anderson, but it is a book about books. Again, I read them straight through. I don't know if that's necessarily how you're supposed to read them, but it is about the women who pioneered horror and speculative fiction. So it starts in the beginning. It starts with the founding mothers. So like Mary Shelley and the classics that we think of, and it goes all the way through to like today. So each author got her own little chapter, and then at the end it gives you like a reading list of things to read by that author. This is like written for me, I feel like, because it's women strong, women centric, and it's horror centric, and I like both of those things being given power. So it was good. I plan to read the recommended book for each of the authors. The first one is Margaret Cavendish, The Blazing World and Other Writings. So that one will be coming up soon because it is towards the top of my list now. It was good. I gave it 5 stars. For what it is, it was perfect. My complaint with the last book that I read was that it didn't go through to the present day, and this one totally did, and it was really cool. The next one I finished was Delicate Condition. If you know me, I usually do not buy hardback books, but the blurb on the front of this is the feminist update to Rosemary's Baby we all needed. And if you know me, you know I love feminism and I love Rosemary's Baby. So when this was mentioned at book club, I was like, yeah, I gotta get it. And then my copy just happened to have a cover that is like a little bit too short on both sides, so I got it for $5 off, and it's like a brand new book. It's by Danielle Valentine, who is actually, it's an alias, a pen name for Danielle Vega, and she wrote How to Survive Your Murder. It's a young adult. So she writes young adult under Danielle Vega, and then this was her first adult book under her name, Danielle Valentine. So it is the basis of the current American Horror Story season, which is titled Delicate. Unfortunately, due to the strike that's going on, I have no idea when they're going to finish the series. But so the first 5 episodes are out now. I'm not sure how many more they were planning on doing, but they did not come close to even being close to finishing. Anyways, long rambling diatribe short. It is about an actress who's recently risen to fame, and she and her husband have been trying to get pregnant for a while, and so they've been doing in vitro, and the round that they're on ends up working and they get pregnant, and then weird things start to happen to her, and she starts to see people that she thinks are following her, and feel certain things. And I don't feel like this is a spoiler, but maybe it is. If you don't want a spoiler, skip the next 10 seconds. She ends up losing the baby, or she's told that she's lost the baby, and then she continues to feel it, and they say that they made a mistake, that the baby's still there. And so, in Rosemary's Baby fashion, she starts, experiencing all these weird symptoms, and starts to experience what they, in classic doctor fashion, term to be hysteria, and people are not taking her seriously and don't believe her, which, if you're a woman and you've had any dealings with the healthcare system, is not far from how real life tends to work. And it's about her trying to convince these people that she's not crazy, and that these things are happening, and that she really is experiencing this. It was really good. I gave it 4 stars just because I was going into it with Rosemary's Baby in my brain, and Rosemary's Baby is the creme de la creme, in my top 5 books, if not my number 1 favorite book in the entire universe of the world. So it had a lot to live up to, and for that it got a 4. Had I not been reading it with Rosemary's Baby in mind, maybe it would have gotten 5. One of my problems is that it did have a massive amount of grammatical copyright editing mistakes, which was distressing to me, because it seems like it was kind of a hyped up book on some platforms. People were talking about it for a while before it came out, and then every other page there's a mistake. I don't know. I'm just picky like that. Good book, recommend it. Next was called In Bloom by Paul Tremblay. He wrote Cabin at the End of the Woods, or Cabin at the End of the World. I can't remember what it's called, but it's what the knock at the cabin. It was a movie that was out earlier this year, or the end of last year. Long story short, he wrote that. It was another of the creature feature, and it was more like sci-fi-y. It starts with a reporter. She's talking about she's going to interview this kid about he's not a kid, he was a kid when he tells the story, but this man, about what happened to his father. And so she meets this guy, and then he's the one telling the story about he and his dad, when he was young, they went to a football game, or a baseball game, and this sludge ate his dad. This biochemical algae ended up eating his dad. And so this lady is trying to come to terms with the fact that in the world there is this man-eating organism living in the waters, and it's of course caused by pollution or whatever. And now the guy has invited her to go see it with him. And good. I gave it a 4. Thinking back, I might have given it a 3 because it was the most infuriating cliffhanger that I've possibly ever read. Like, as in the Audible version of these books, like when it's over, this little ditty starts playing at the end, and when the ditty started playing, I was like, seriously, that was the end. It was angering, but it was good. I just wish that it had not ended quite so abruptly. Next was Best of Luck by Jason Mott. I haven't read any books by Jason Mott. Don't know if he's well known, but he wrote this story called Best of Luck. It is super short. It was two guys, best friends, and the one best friend is holding the other best friend hostage at gunpoint. And we kind of go back and find out the story of why he is so mad at his best friend. And it's kind of a simple story. This guy has had a series of bad luck and he thinks it's his friend's fault. Pretty good. Looking back, maybe not deserving of a 4, maybe more of a 3, but decent. Next was called Big Bad by Chandler Baker. I don't know who Chandler Baker is, but I might have to find out because it was pretty good. So it's told from multiple perspectives, kind of, all within the same family. So you have Sam, who's the dad, Rachel is the mom, and then you have June and Odie are the daughters. And June and Odie think that the dad is a bad guy. And we come to find out that he has a secret. He and the mom have a secret. And it's to protect the kids that they're not telling the secret. But a stranger shows up on their door who knows about the secret and wants to do something about it. And I don't want to give anything away, but Big Bad is a clue as to what the secret is. So it was good. It did a lot of, like, they would say something and you'd be like, what? And then eventually it all, like, tied together in the end. It was good. I'll have to check him out because I could definitely read more of that. And the last one I did was for November's book club. And it was called 13 Stories by Jonathan Sims. I don't have the copy of it because my mom's reading it right now. So it is another one that is written in multiple perspectives. It's like a bunch of little vignettes tied together. So the basis is that this big billionaire, multi-billionaire man owns this apartment complex, and there's like two sides to the apartment complex. There's the rich people side, like the wealthy hoi polloi side, and there's like the bad side, like the cheap dirty side. And there's 13 floors, and 13 people in the building tell their story of, like, the weird crap that's happening to them. And at the end of each of their stories, they get an invitation to a party at the billionaire's, like, loft house at the top. And it ends with all of these people gathering up at his rooftop apartment. And it's the ending is pretty crazy. I really struggle with spoilers because I don't want to give anything away. Long story short, without spoilers, the building has chosen these people, and now the billionaire wants to pass the whatever it is in the building, he wants to pass it on to these people. And he offers to give them each $1 billion if they agree to do it. So they have to make the decision of, do they want to take on this evil building and all of its, history and evil, or if they want to not. And they don't really have an option because he's going to kill them if they don't. Some of the stories or vignettes in it were a lot better than others. Some of them were genuinely creepy, and some of them were kind of a struggle to get through. It was also very social justicey, pitting, rich against poor kind of thing. So it was a little, at times it felt a little preachy, but I gave it 4 stars because it was good. And I have taken 25 minutes of your time, but I read 11 books and I crammed them into 25 minutes, and I think that's not bad. So, November is going to have much fewer books because there's no way I can get through that many. And I will see you all at the end of this month or at the beginning of next month. Bye.